What's that? What's that? What's that? Oh snap, son! Oh snap! Bravo!
So I'm honored to be standing here, about to introduce a guy who you all know so well.
President Paul! President Paul! President Paul! President Paul! President Paul! President Paul!
And it is my pleasure to welcome you, the man who consistently has never voted to raise taxes, never voted for an unbalanced budget, never voted for a federal restriction on gun ownership, never voted for a congressional pay raise, never taken government-paid junkets, and he has never voted to increase the size of the executive branch. On top of all of that, he returns a portion of his congressional salary to the U.S. Treasury every year. What congressman does that? A family man of a 55-year marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce to you Dr. Ron Paul. For us, it's coming back to our hometown. We lived here for several years. Okay, that's better. Have the mic. There we go. A little bit better. No, but thank you very much for coming. This is wonderful. You know, I got some good news. At least I think it's good news, because they're claiming, you know, the campaign's over. When are you going to drop out? Yeah, that's what I say too. I'm glad you agree. But today they had a Rasmussen poll that came out, and lo and behold, Romney's not doing badly. But it might be reflecting, you know, that the president is not doing so well. and they came out tied. They were 50-50, but they used my name, which they don't do very often. You know, sometimes they think we don't exist. They did that, and we win by 1 point over the president. Pretend that we don't exist, that we don't have a campaign, nobody's interested. And the other day there was some headline that says, "Where's Ron Paul? Where is he gone?" And then somebody went and put one of these collages together. I don't know, maybe you've seen this on the internet. They took about 8 pictures of crowds like this in bigger ones and across the country in the Northeast and California and Texas. So the real question is, where's the media been? So, I don't know. I'm coming to the conclusion that sometimes the media is biased. Do you ever think that could be possible? But like we say, you can't stop a message whose time has come, no matter what happens. No, we don't know the future, but we do know what can happen if we don't do a job to change people's minds. And that's what we're involved in. We're involved in not only running to win and have an influence, but we really want to convert people into having some beliefs and convictions and understanding about what true liberty is all about. And that's where we're winning, let me tell you. There's no doubt that we are winning the hearts and minds of the people, and media people will all of a sudden jump at this and say, oh, that means you were never serious. You were never running to win, and you were just running for ideas. And I said, well, some people can't quite comprehend this, but you know, it's quite possible that you can run to win and still believe in something. We can do both. We're not talking about a couple hundred or a couple thousand, even a couple 100,000. I think we're talking now about millions of people. And one thing wonderful about a true revolution, it's not a partisan thing. A revolution influences everybody. The people who are in the Republican Party who want constitutional government, the people in the Democratic Party who wants to protect civil liberties and a sensible foreign policy, the independents and those who have dropped out, and then that large number of young people coming into the voting age. That is what we're seeing. That comes from people being active and sending a message to Washington, getting their attention. Because I don't know, you might be surprised to hear, but the people in Washington, a lot of them don't have firm convictions about anything. a lot of people in Washington have firm conviction that they like the job and they like to be reelected. So that makes certain that the conditions of being reelected is to do the right things and to obey the Constitution. The government should be open. We should know what the government is doing. We should protect the people's privacy. It shouldn't be the other way around. Now, you know, when I believe it was Benjamin Franklin said that, you know, if you ever sacrifice your liberties for safety, you won't have either one. And I'm afraid that's what we're doing. And I heard that so often. This was so disappointing after 9/11 that people say, oh, it doesn't bother me. We have to give up our liberties to be safe. Well, I have a different understanding of who makes us safe. You know, if you wanted the policeman to make you safe, you have to have a policeman at the door. And you have to have, if the federal government's to make us safe, they have to do the same thing. The purpose of the government and the officials, they take an oath of office not to enhance their political party or make you safe. They're to obey the Constitution is what they're supposed to do. But after 9/11, I certainly understood the stress after 9/11, but not assessing and not understanding or ever even knowing what the CIA has taught us, that if you're careless with your foreign policy, watch out, you might get blowback, and we ought to know about that. So this is what we have had to put up with, but just a couple weeks after 9/11, a bill that had been in process, but they couldn't get passed because it was such an attack on our liberties, and that was the onerous Patriot Act that should have never been passed. So what do we have now? We have a Patriot Act which repealed the Fourth Amendment, and we have TS agents that sort of treat you like a terrorist at the airports. So we have to be aware of that, and so many things are going on under the atmosphere today, because though we're winning the intellectual fight, those who have the power and those who have the wealth that they get from this power will not go away quietly, and they are going to fight, and they're going to be tenacious. And guess what? The power struggle in Washington, the pretense of the Republicans fighting with the Democrats, it isn't philosophic. It's over who gets the power and whose special interest gets the benefits. And this is the reason that right now it is recognized that there's not much to pass out anymore. We're a poorer nation. The wealth that we have is based on debt. The middle class is shrinking. They're poorer. They're losing their houses and they're losing their jobs. And we're a long way from resolving the economic crisis that has been brought on by bad fiscal policy and horrible monetary policy, and that has to change. Which means, of course, that we need a whole generation to agree with the founders who didn't like the idea of an income tax, didn't give it to us, and we got that in the progressive era. At the same time, we got the Federal Reserve and the foreign interventions for foreign policy. So it is this acceptance, casual acceptance, because it's at the beginning, it's slow and nobody notices. We give up a little economic liberty here and there. It eventually doesn't help the people it was intended to help. It goes to serve entitlements to the very wealthy. That's essentially what inflation does. You print money. Whoever gets to use the money first have the benefits. But you get it last. The banks and the big corporations, the military-industrial complex, foreign governments and foreign central banks and foreign aid recipients, they get the money first. When it circulates and come back to you, you get the inflation. And who does it hurt the most? The very people we pretend to take care of from cradle to grave. So let's be very choosy on who we send to Washington. Make sure they do know about the Constitution and take that oath of office very seriously. As president, I would never legislate through the executive order because it's illegal.
President Paul! 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 President Paul!
So a lot of changes have to occur, but they're all based on this idea of liberty, protecting the individual. Foreign policy is the same way. If you don't have a right to go into your neighbor's house and tell him how to spend his money or tell him how he should run his personal life, why in the world do we assume that we have the moral authority, the constitutional authority, or the money to go around the world telling them how to run their country? I say quit, bring them home. But the answers are rather clear. We had a wonderful, wonderful introduction to the concept of liberty. We had the best system, the best constitution, flawed though, obviously, but at least it granted a maximum amount of liberty. We had the freest and the wealthiest country ever. But I do not believe we can say this now. The statistics are starting to show that we are not the wealthiest country. We're with the largest debt in the world. You can't be the wealthiest country anymore. We have to change this, and we have to get people's attention, which means that we have to make sure that people know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it, why it's in their best interest. People went along with the entitlement welfare system for years because they believed it was in their best interest. But I'll tell you what I think is in your best interest: your individual freedom and your own responsibility. That's in your best interest. Responsibility of taking care of yourself or individuals, it doesn't work. They can only do that by taking away your liberties, and that to me is in crisis proportion right now. So we have to understand where we've been, what we have, compared to the Soviet system collapsing, going back to a Russian system. They've had their problems, but they did not have the traditions that we have. We had a good constitution. We had sound money, we had property rights, we had individual liberty, we had the Second Amendment, and we don't need to go back in a static sort of way. We need to go back to the point where they started allowing these liberties to be eroded. Pick up the pieces and improve upon it. This is a new experiment. Liberty is new and young yet. We don't want to give up so soon, and right now, if we do not get hold of this, we will have given up on this grand experiment. And this is where I'm optimistic. I think this is what is happening. People realize now that it is so necessary out of our own self-defense, but more importantly than that, even the economic reasons. I just want to live in a free society. Even if I were a poorer person, I'd want to live in a free society. Is if you fight for freedom, you automatically have the most prosperous society as well. If the concentration is on the material benefits of a free society, as we have concentrated on material benefits, and this is not to say anything negative about accumulation of wealth and being prosperous. It means if you concentrate on that and that's all you care about, then you introduce the notion that you need more government to redistribute this wealth to the privileged classes. And this is what has happened. So what we want to do, of course, is free up the society so that we can all be wealthy. The whole idea that we get accused so often of saying, well, you don't care about the poor, you don't want to have socialized medicine, you don't want to give everybody a free house, and on, that we don't care about the poor. But just think of the people that were supposed to get houses, in the housing bubble, which we knew would burst. I mean, it didn't help the poor. They're the ones who lost the jobs and they lost their houses, and the wealthy got bailed out. So it doesn't work, and that is why we have to understand and trust the free market system, and why individual rights are the most important. And we have a task before us, but I believe very sincerely we're making great progress. Now, the other wonderful thing about the message of liberty is it's not divisive. Some people say, oh no, they're up there fighting and killing each other, and one side wants more freedom, the other side wants more government. That's not true. They're fighting over power. What we should be arguing about over influence of good ideas and right ideas. That's what we should be. That's what we should be talking about. Freedom brings people together as long as we get people who want to be free. Now, they want to be taken care of from cradle to grave and think they can live off their fellow man and do well. That's not going to work. But that's going to end too, because they know we're broke. So even those on the receiving end know that something has to change. But the reason it really brings people together is I do believe that the logic prevails in the end. And the reason we come together with the freedom message is we don't tell people what to do with their freedom. You get to decide. You get to decide your lifestyle. You get to decide what you eat, smoke, and drink. You get to spend your own money. It's your money. So people should come together. We understand this pretty well with the religious liberty. We accept in this country, even though at times with political correctness things get out of hand, but basically most Americans understand we have freedom of religion. You go to any church you want, and you can also not go to church if you don't want. But that's the way it should be across the board on your personal habits, on your economic liberties, just like religious liberties are. And that for that reason, people who are interested in liberty should be very diverse. And I am very pleased that the support of the campaign is very diverse. The same way, on the other side, some people's personal habits are not my personal habits, and I don't endorse them, but I don't have to practice them. If they don't force them on me, I'm not going to force mine on anybody else. I think that's the way it should be. This whole idea of personal liberty, I think, is catching on. The people back in the 1918, when they passed Prohibition, and lasted about 12 years, and then they quit, they woke up. But back then, they knew that Prohibition of alcohol was unconstitutional. They had enough respect to say, we have to amend the Constitution to have that much government interference. And then, of course, it was a total failure. But they woke up after 12 years. But now we didn't amend the Constitution. Now we have all these prohibitions on what we put into our bodies. And I think drugs are detestable. I think prescription drugs are probably more dangerous than illegal drugs. I think misuse of drugs and addiction to drugs is a disease more than it is a crime. And if there are no violent acts, I mean, that's people's business. I'd like to talk you out of them and explain, but that's my responsibility to myself and to my children and my grandchildren to explain these dangers. But I am convinced that the federal war on drugs is absolutely a lot more dangerous than the illegal drugs. That means we don't care and we endorse drugs? No, legalizing something doesn't mean we endorse it. We don't endorse religion because it's legal. We don't endorse these things, and so that's why you have to have a more open mind. Matter of fact, the Constitution even permits the states to regulate. I mean, we have state regulation of alcohol, and young people tell me it's harder to get alcohol than it is to get marijuana, so it's not accomplishing a whole lot. So the real tragedy there is it's an excuse to undermine our liberties, more time to search houses and break into houses, these SWAT team operations. They say there are dozens and dozens every single day in this country. And lo and behold, I'm sure you can't believe it, sometimes they go into the wrong houses and kill the wrong people. And they find they didn't even have the drugs. But obviously, you know, the nonviolence should be something that we should change our mind about. You take nonviolent people who've used drugs 3 times, put away in prison for a lifetime. And if you put in there for a short period of time and put in with a lot more violent criminals, you come out with a much more hardened criminal. There's no sense. And the one reason why I think we're really winning this, there is a certain preacher that's been well known for being absolutely opposed to this, and that's Pat Robertson. He says it's time to look at this. This drug war isn't working. So we are now bringing elements together just out of logic and persistence that we will come to our senses. And besides, it's cost about $3 or $4 trillion since the early 1970s. All money wasted, just as the wars overseas are wasted. Our national debt has gone up over $4 trillion in the last 10 years for these wars. A simple process would have prevented all this. No wars without a declaration by the Congress, and then go to war, win them, and get them over. Now, the one thing that I am very pleased with in our campaign is at the present time, and basically during the campaign, other than our governor, nobody else has been in the military. So all the candidates now are never been in the military. I've been in for 5 years. And I get tremendous support from the military as well as the veterans. And I don't think it's because I'm a veteran. I think they respect me for this, that I haven't been like some back in the 60s that avoided the draft and now promote war. They're called chicken hawks. But what I am proud of is if you add up all the money sent by the active military personnel to all the candidates through this past year, we got about 7 times more than everybody else. You don't support the war, you don't support the troops, you're un-American, and you don't defend our country, and I think that's a bunch of baloney. I think what we need is to defend our country, but we don't need to overdo it. We don't need to ever accept this principle of preemptive war. Preemptive war is equivalent to invading and starting a war. We should defend our country, but we should never start a war. Let us be optimistic that the revolution is well on its way. It's growing by leaps and bounds. We don't know exactly what will happen, but you can make a difference in the election in Texas, and everything that you do from here on out. Be engaged, understand the issues. People will use you in one way or the other, but we all have a responsibility. And this is where I'm optimistic, with the people coming together, the young people and those who have felt disenfranchised for so long. The necessity is obvious. The failure is around us, the economic failures and the foreign policy failures and the debt that we're facing. But we have the facilities and we have the understanding, and now we have the enthusiasm to once again charity that has made America great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the venue staff kind of 3600. Yeah. Where's the other guy? Exactly. Yeah, I guess. And then is he playing on any fundraiser?